Why do you think American audiences haven't really responded to her yet?
Well, I think that, first of all, I think they will much more in this film, and a number of people, Pauline Kael, Mike Srago in Rolling Stone, Janet Maslin in the New York Times, have all said that, you know, this is by far her best work in Exposed. I think up until this point, it's still partly true now. There are some women who are jealous of her. There are some women who feel slightly unsettled by watching her. There's a movie review, a very bright, appealing young woman in Dallas who does movie reviews on the local TV station there. She told me that she didn't even want to take this guy she was going out with to the screening of Exposed, because she said, I was just fed up with seeing Nastassia Kinski on the screen doing her little pout number and looking beautiful, and I know what the guy with me is thinking and wanting, and I'm sitting there next to him, and by the time we leave the theater, I feel like smacking him and stabbing her. And she said, but, you know, he wanted to see the movie, and I knew why, so I took him. And she said, after 10 minutes, the rage started to melt. And for the first time, I started to say, this is actually someone I could like. I like this woman on the screen in Exposed. And she felt close to her. And I think, I'm not saying all women will break down, but I think many who have had, first of all, I think it's easier to break down when you're as aware of what was making you resist, as this woman was, than it is for people who aren't so aware, who would get angry simply at being accused of that as a reason. But I think that this film certainly will melt a lot of that resistance, and I think men who have looked at her in the past only as a sort of sexy European pinup will see that there's someone who is direct and intelligent and tender and interesting in a way that and complex that they haven't seen before.
You wrote Exposed specifically for Nastassia Kinski.
Yeah. I find that my best luck has come when I've had an actor in mind, even if that actor doesn't end up playing the part, because the focus is clearer. In Love and Money, I ended up with an actor in the lead, Ray Sharkey, who, while perfectly good for more rodential characters like the one in The Idolmaker and Who'll Stop the Rain, was simply unsuited to the character in Love and Money. And as a result, although it's great work from King Vidor and Klaus Kinski and Armand Assante and Ornella Muti, Ray really is a hole in the middle of the film. It's not that he's bad, he's just not good. And it made me know that I could not make that mistake again, that I am not a magician who can turn, I'm not an alchemist who can turn base metal into gold, or let's say an inappropriate actor into a great actor and in the wrong movie, wrong role. So here I was not going to make that mistake again. And Nastassia seemed to me a great model for the part. She seemed, that is to say, that I could use things she said and did. She'd come to the part would come to her, and I had to stick to my guns and not go for what would have been a very distant second choice. There were a couple of occasions when financing was offered if I used certain other people whose name at that point was more attractive to exhibitors, but I did not knuckle under because I felt the movie wasn't worth making if it was going to be made if it was going to be made wrong. So I just hoped that sooner or later the money would come through, and in fact a year later it did. But there was a great deal of delay, humiliation, rage along the road.
You can be seen along with Miss Kinski in the current Playboy magazine, the photo session. How did that come about?
Well, at a certain point, shortly after we finished shooting, David Begelman of Indecent Exposure fame and many other achievements, and actually a very, very appealing, interesting, strange guy in his own right, David Begelman had set this movie up first. He's the one who put the money up, or got MGM to put it up when he was head of the company. Shortly after we finished shooting, he was fired, so that the movie had no champion there. Traditionally, once the head of a studio who okayed a project is fired, the rest of the studio turns its back on that project because they have nothing to gain by its success and everything to lose by trailing after some film that the prior studio had set up. particularly in the case of an unusual special movie like Exposed. So I was left with the likelihood that this movie, Exposed, was barely going to see the light of day, that MGM-UA would probably dump it unless I could show them that there was a real cachet to the film, that there would be real interest in the movie, that there'd be real excitement about the movie. Well, that comes as much from intangible events surrounding it, from a sort of aura and personality that it gives off, and from publicity and attention as it does from the actual quality of the film. So I thought, I'm going to have to at least show that this movie's going to reach 15, 20 million people, that they'll know it's there, that they'll be interested in seeing the leading lady. And Playboy was, at that point, the only game in town. Playboy was eager to do Nastassia, put her on the cover. And Helmut Newton was a great photographer and a really interesting, crazy, special visionary whom many, many fashion photographers around the world have been imitating for the last 10 or 15 years. Helmut Newton wanted to shoot her, so it just seemed like the best platform at that time for at least making a case to MGM-UA that this is a movie of which people will be aware. It will not exist in a vacuum. Allow it into the theaters. Let people at least come. You won't even have to spend that much because I'll give you this free advertising. And then Helmut did these very, very strange, exotic photographs, which, although not directly connected to the movie, have a sensibility that is allied in some way to it, I think.